We often talk about breaking skills down into smaller steps to be able to teach our learners. But once they're broken down, how do we teach them? Where do we go from here? Hi, I'm Shayna, and together with my partner Shira, we are How to ABA. We're behavior analysts that create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they can make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little bit easier. Today's topic is all about ABA chaining, and if you want more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases. So right around the time of the pandemic, it was emotional and crazy for all of us, but I got so many phone calls about, oh my gosh, my child doesn't know how to wash his hands. How do I teach my child to wash his hands? And I have to do this all virtually because I can't go in and see anybody else at this point in time. I'm mandated to stay home. So I'm describing to these parents, okay, all you need to do is think about hand washing, break it down into steps. And I actually made a task analysis of hand washing. And I said, okay, first step is this, you turn on the tap and then you put your hands under, you pump some soap and you do this and you do that. Here's all the steps. Here's a task analysis. And the next step from parents, or the next question was, well, these steps are great. I wash my hands all the time. I know the steps, but how do I teach it? So that's what we're going to talk about today is how do we teach skills after we've got a task analysis? How do we break those skills down and how do we teach those skills? So I think the first thing is obviously creating that task analysis, like I mentioned. And once you have those steps, looking at what your learner can already do. So, with the itemized, hand washing, you say, okay, I've got my steps of hand washing. I know how to wash my hands. I've got the steps broken down. I really just want to see what you can do. So, I would take my learner into the bathroom or advise the parent, okay, take your child in the washroom and, let them wash their hands or watch them wash their hands. At what point do you need to step in? Can you step back? After you've stepped in to help them turn on the tap, can you step back? Are they just playing with the water? Do they need more help with this? Do they need more help with that, etc.? So you really want to know and make that assessment, right? That beginner assessment of, hey, where do I start? Okay, they can do this little piece of it, but they can't do this, or they can do all these pieces. They just can't pump the soap. And that's really going to give you a good description of where to start. So, once I've looked at that, I can say, okay, here's where they need help. So some learners, can do most of it. Like I said, they just can't do one or two little pieces of it. And if that's your learner, if that's your child, where would you go from there? I would say, okay, let's pull out those, what they call composite skills. So let's pull out those composite skills and just teach those things separately. So if it's a matter of not being able to pump the soap or not being able to turn on the tap, let's just teach that separately. Different time of the day, doesn't need to be during hand washing. Let's teach, 10 trials of here's how to turn on the tap, or 5 trials of here's how to pump the soap. And, once they're able to do that, then, you can throw it back into the chain and, teach them within the chain and see if they can do that. If you've got a learner who, can't do most of the steps, so, they're going through and they need help with almost everything, at that point in time, I typically would do what we call a total task presentation, which means that you can show them the entire task along with a backward chain, which means that I would go through the entire task with them and, help them throughout the process, maybe a hand over hand fashion or gesture to do certain things. And then at the very end, I'm going to practice that last step 5 times, 10 times in a row. They need that practice. Once they're able to do that last step, then I'm going to go through the entire task. And then I'm going to, let them do the last 2 steps on their own, and then the last 3 steps, and then the last 4 steps. And that works really, really well for something like hand washing, because you have to wash your hands. You can't just, get away with the very last step of drying hands and leaving the bathroom. You have to wash your hands. So being able to go through that together, with another individual helping out, and then stepping back for that last step can be beneficial. And then, backing up further and further. If you've got, a learner who's just scared, scared to use the bathroom altogether, or scared of the tap, scared of, what have you, you may need to go in with what we call a forward chain, which means starting at the very beginning and teaching that very first step. Pairing the water with some reinforcement, maybe playing some fun music in the back, in the background as well, making that bathroom a little bit more pleasant to be in, and then just teaching them that very first step, and that's it, and then helping them through the rest of the process. So there's different types of presentations when you're talking about teaching a task analysis. There's the forward chaining, which we just talked about, which is that you teach that first step first, and you teach, and then you can just prompt through the rest. Once the first step is independent, then you teach the first 2 steps, and then the first 3 steps, and then the first 4 steps. That's forward chaining. Backward chaining is when you prompt the student through the entire sequence. And that's total task presentation, is when you prompt the student through the entire sequence, but I typically do total task presentation along with forward chaining or backward chaining. So purely backward chaining is just taking that last step and teaching the student that last step, and then the last 2 steps, and then the last 3 steps, etc. When you're teaching this, it is really, really important to try and get in there without using very many verbal prompts and without very many gestural prompts. If you need to model and show the student something and that's all they need, or to talk them through it once and that's all they need, that's amazing. But if you've got a learner who is very what we call prompt dependent, who really is dependent on that adult saying, okay, what's next? Okay, turn on the tap. Okay, now pump the soap. It's going to be very, very difficult for the adult to fade themselves back and get out of that teaching interaction. So you want to make sure that you are walking them through that teaching interaction without saying anything. So you may want to just prompt at the elbow, or maybe prompt at the wrist a little bit when they need help. I call it a dance. Sometimes you have to step in and really prompt at the elbow or prompt at the wrist, and other times you can back up. So you step in and then you back up. You step in and you back up. Being very, very careful to try not to embed yourself in that teaching interaction by using verbal prompts or gesture prompts. And then in terms of data collection, typically, like I said, we use what's called a task analysis, which has the steps broken down, and you can just mark on there, what kind of prompts you had to use. So, for something that was independent, I would put a plus on that step. For something that's not independent, was it prompted? Was it fully prompted, like an FP, like fully prompted? Or was it just a partial prompt, a PP? Or did I have to go in with a verbal? I might write a V. And I write down all of that in the different steps. And then, say you have 10 steps or 8 steps of the entire chain. Let's pretend it's 10 because it's great math. And, my learner is able to complete 3 independently, but needed prompts for 7 of the steps. I would mark that as a 3 out of 10, which is 30%. And you can mark that time over time. We're going to be giving away a freebie, which is a task analysis. It's a blank task analysis. So it doesn't have to be hand washing. You can break down any steps using this task analysis and take data on this. So click this link in and around this video to get your free task analysis template. For more information on ABA chaining, visit howtoaba.com to claim your free task analysis template. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have any further questions.